I think a lot of Dr. Fauci's kind of undoing of public trust came in the aftermath of the administration, not so much, right when I was there. Because as you said, we were all just taking in the science at that point. I think as we've had time away from it, we can see, okay, wait, he was no mask, then he was one mask, then he was two masks, then don't mask if you're vaccinated, now back to one mask. And we can all know that that doesn't make sense. And then I was just very alarmed when I see him have these exchanges with Rand Paul about gain of function research, only to find out in his emails, he was talking about gain of function research. And, I'm paraphrasing and very broadly summarizing it here. He argues he was not. But I think as that came out and we started to see some of those emails, all the pieces kind of fit together as to who Dr. Fauci was and is. And he has some real questions to answer about what he told Congress.
So I want to back up a little bit. You talked a little bit about COVID for just a moment there, but as everything was starting to unfold, which it's crazy to think about. Basically 2 years ago at this point, we're 2 years into this. Can you talk about what that was like at the beginning as you guys are getting information, as Fauci's telling you things, as the CDC's telling you things? Trump is, saying close the border with China. They're calling him racist. Just like the complete chaos of like the first couple months.
Yeah, it was total chaos because when I showed up in the White House, we were in a nationwide lockdown. I mean, it was the beginning of COVID.
Right. Wait, so you started when, in March or?
Yeah, I started, I think it was technically April.
In April.
In March I got appointed, but yeah, April. So yeah, nationwide lockdown. It was kind of jarring, certainly jarring. And I can tell you this, like no one wanted to not be in a lockdown more than President Trump, the businessman. It was literally killing him having to do this. You had someone who I think knew how to handle and balance economic interest and health interest. I think he did a great job. And this president, look at the vaccine mandate that he's doing. That's just killing American businesses. And de Blasio tries to outshine him by doing a stricter one. It was definitely strange to be in there, I will say, at that time. But I think the president did a good job. He doesn't get a lot of credit for it. I was there and Jared Kushner told me, there was a point where like we were scared, are there enough ventilators in this country? Imagine the thought of having to ration ventilators. But the way that Jared Kushner and President Trump were able to mobilize the private sector to, we not be so dependent on foreign countries, but mobilize it, jumpstart it to where we didn't have a ventilator shortage. We ended up getting N95 masks and respirators. And we were able to use a businessman and the ingenuity that comes with that to escape some rather scary scenarios that it's hard to imagine it could be worse than the number of people who have perished already. But I think it could have been worse if not for the ingenuity of some of the great people in the administration.
Did you have reservations about Fauci and the CDC and the NIH and everything like as they were first giving you all the information? Because if you look back 2 years ago, everybody, myself included, we were all listening at the beginning. Like everybody was like, yes, I'll wash my bags when I come home from the supermarket and I'll put gloves on when I go to Costco. Like we all did all of the stuff, which in retrospect, for me at least, seems completely ridiculous at this point.
Yeah, in retrospect, it does. I think, as you said, when I first got in there, we had the coronavirus task force led by Vice President Pence, and Fauci would give his opinion and Dr. Birx and, everyone would give their opinion, and you're just trying to take in information and consume as much as you can. So I think, for me early on, I was just taking in the information, getting the words of doctors, comparing what Azar was saying to Birx, to Fauci, to, the different people who had stakes in the game, FDA, Dr. Hahn. But I think it became alarming to me when Dr. Fauci, you'd get the media lineup and this man would be on like 1,000 different things and like Facebooks. And I'm like, how does he have time for science when he's literally doing like a Facebook Live right now with some person? And I think the level of media that he was doing, and I get that getting scientific information out there to the public is important and part of the job, but I don't think it should be all the job. And he was doing a whole lot of media and contradicting different people in the administration, and it just kind of became a headache.
What do you think we should think of him at this point? What do you make of him? 2 years in, it doesn't seem like it's going that well, according to them.
I will say I don't know that I was shocked per se, because I think a lot of Dr. Fauci's kind of undoing of public trust came in the aftermath of the administration, not so much, right when I was there. Because as you said, we were all just taking in the science at that point. I think as we've had time away from it, we can see, okay, wait, he was no mask, then he was one mask, then he was two masks, then don't mask if you're vaccinated, now back to one mask. And we can all know that that doesn't make sense. And then I was just very alarmed when I see him have these exchanges with Rand Paul about gain of function research, only to find out in his emails, he was talking about gain of function research. And, I'm paraphrasing and very broadly summarizing it here. He argues he was not. But I think as that came out and we started to see some of those emails, all the pieces kind of fit together as to who Dr. Fauci was and is. And he has some real questions to answer about what he told Congress.
Do you think it matters if you lie to Congress anymore? I mean, there's so many instances of high-level people lying to Congress, whether it's, Zuckerberg or Jack at Twitter talking about shadow banning or algorithmic tricks or whatever else, or the former CIA director, we don't spy on Americans wittingly, as he's scratching his head because he knows he's lying, or Fauci with some of the gain of function stuff. Like, do you think does the system function well enough to do anything if you actually lie to Congress?
Well, I mean, in effect, it matters if you are a person on the right. If you're Michael Flynn, and I talked about his case a lot at the podium, if you're Michael Flynn, the national security advisor, and the deep state doesn't like how you operate, they can corner you in your office, not tell you to get a lawyer, and essentially try to prosecute you and use a statute that they've not used to prosecute anyone before. I think it was the Logan Act. I mean, this is just incredible stuff. But if you're Dr. Fauci or several of the other people you named, then yeah, it does matter. And it shouldn't, there should be one standard. But Fauci's got to answer those questions. He argues it was not gain of function research, but Rand Paul says it is.
Yeah. All right. So let's shift a little bit to the book, because I like the title. For a time such as this, it's like we are living in extraordinary times. People think it's a Chinese, it's a curse in essence. May you live in interesting times. People think that's a good thing, but they sort of mean it as a curse. Do you think we're living in something that's really unique, that is different than, every 4 years they tell us, well, this is the most important 4 years? It does seem like something's a little different this time around.
Something is very different. I mean, we saw an entire country collapse that we were in for 2 decades, Afghanistan, which is literally on the verge of economic collapse as well. I mean, COVID-19 never ending and the left seizing upon it to have these Orwellian rules. I mean, we are in a very different time, and a polarizing time where the right and the left just don't see the same set of facts, even, it seems, or have much in common, to say the least, where you have the left trying to destroy the American flag and what our country stands for. I do think this is an aberrational time. And definitely when I went into the administration, I said for such a time as this, and a reference to the book of Esther, because I went in during a COVID-19 pandemic, just before the murder of George Floyd, where riots took over the nation. I mean, it was unexpected, to say the least. The commander in chief getting a novel coronavirus pathogen. I mean, just story after story. And then a Supreme Court justice passing just before a presidential election, and then Amy Coney Barrett coming in. I mean, this was a crazy time. And I believe I was put there for a reason, for a purpose. And my dad said to me, remember, you're here for such a time as this. And then Democrat CNN commentator Van Jones texted me separately that same message, which I thought was interesting and I was meant to hear. Who, by the way, Van is one of the great Democrats who's out there. Despite his political leanings, he's just a really decent and great person.
Yeah, there's not many decent liberals left, but I guess he's in that small pool. Although I don't know him personally, so this is not an attack on him personally. But he still comes off with this woke stuff, and you're just like, come on, man, you're supposed to be one of the good ones.
I disagree with him on all that, but yeah.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about the media instead of nonstop yelling, check out our media playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, check out the full episode playlist. They're both right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.